Do you want to click or talk?
I'll click.
Hello everyone, welcome. My name's Louisa Tom-Zingle. I'm an academic in education. My colleague, Leanne Daly, Head of Education. So I'm here to talk to you about education. Click on through.
Shall do.
So I guess what we'll do tonight is provide a bit of an overview of our programs. We try to preempt some of the common questions that students and their parents and carers tend to have. What can they study? How can they study at JCU? Education. A little bit of an overview of the kinds of subjects in the programs. Students always ask us around professional experience and what that involves, so we'll touch on that tonight.
So just so you know, professional experience is when they do placements in schools. So yeah, it's often a highlight for them. Yeah,
sometimes it's referred to as work-integrated learning, is something JCU throws around a bit. And of course, program entry requirements. So I know over the 3 days we've had some groups, students who attend, who are about to take set planning, so they want to know about prereqs. Other kids in year 11 and 12 were pretty switched on actually. When they were interested in education, they'd already done the research, which is good. Okay. So in terms of our Bachelor of Education offerings, we have 3 for the Bachelor of Education, Early Childhood Education, the primary program, and the secondary program. So all of them are 4 years full-time, like any what we call initial teacher education programs. And in terms of delivery, you can see there that the early childhood and the primary program has 2 offerings, online and on campus. Now when we say on campus, I should clarify too that moving into next year and beyond, we're adopting a blended learning approach. So that means that there'll be a mix of on-campus learning for what we call our pre-service teachers when they're enrolled. They're not just students, they're pre-service teachers. So they do a combination of some face-to-face instruction with workshops and tutorials, and that's complemented by online learning. In the ECE, the Early Childhood Education Program and primary programs in particular, there are dedicated wholly online programs, so we're seeing pre-service teachers enroll from across the country. And we have a special delivery there called the carousel mode, so it really suits people. I'm not sure it's so popular with school leavers, I guess, those juggling a career, where you study one subject intensively at a time over a 6-week period, and you go through. So it's part-time, but it's a fast-tracked approach to part-time, so you still finish your degree sooner. If you were to do a 4-year degree part-time, 6 to 8 years, this one you can get it done in around 5.5 years. Yeah. So that's an option too.
Yeah. So the idea of the carousel is that they do carousel through picking, and they can dip in and out of study periods. It's a bit more flexible in that way, but typically the data for us would suggest that it's people who are working in childcare centres and want to get a qualification with the bachelor's degree, and they tend to be non-school leavers.
Yeah.
Okay. And secondary, we offer a whole range of...
that's the next slide.
Oh, okay.
So when students came to the tent over the last few days, I was sort of asking what the program is, where can I teach basically. So the ECE program trains graduates to teach across the curriculum from birth to year 3. Primary education, prep, or kindy from another state, up to, or preschool I should say, up to year 6, and then secondary is junior secondary, so year 7 up to year 12. But we see increasingly that there's a lot of flexibility from the school in terms of employing teachers, so it's not uncommon for primary graduates to get jobs in lower secondary. Similarly, primary might work in early childhood might creep up even further into primary. So there's certainly some flexibility. The primary program, we offer a number of specialisations, so that's where students do a few extra discipline subjects to become a little bit more expert in a particular area. So when you hear about specialist HP teachers in schools or science teachers, that's what we're talking about. So in terms of specialisations, there's an English and literacy one, a maths and numeracy specialisation, health and physical education, there's science and there's technologies. So all primary pre-service teachers choose a specialisation that might interest them.
Sorry, Louisa, just before you jump on there, I was talking to a parent outside earlier, and the question was that if I do a special, and I referred to specialisation, that doesn't mean that they are only then directed into that pathway. They can certainly be, a teacher in a classroom. If you're a HPE specialist, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't teach in the classroom if that's what you decide.
Yeah. And I suppose that's the main difference between the ECE and the primary programs and secondary. So ECE primary Students are obviously are trained across the curriculum, maths, humanities, science, English, yeah, the broader spectrum. Science, secondary is different because they specialise in 2 secondary teaching areas that qualifies them to teach to year 12. Chemistry, body history, lots of them. What are others? English.
Yeah. So
all the sciences, the mathematics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And chemistry.
Yes, so we do, yeah, the humanities, the English, the humanities and social science, English.
Manual arts, anyone, industrial technologies and design, spread the word, that's for you next year.
And it's her pet, it's her pet project, yeah. So yeah, any of the curriculum areas essentially that are taught in high schools in Queensland, you will see our capacity to deliver most of those, yeah.
Languages.
Yeah.
Okay, yep, thanks, Leanne. So professional experience, learning on the job, if you like. Professional experience opportunities start in first year with small blocks of crack of 5 days at a time, do a couple of those. And I guess it's a bit like starting with your training wheels. They do lots of observations and just get familiar with what the classroom context is like, just decide whether this is right for me. And that steps up over the course of the program. So by following year, they're doing 2 substantive blocks of crack of 9 weeks in total,
yeah,
where they're demonstrating that they're competent and proficient to be in the classroom when they graduate.
So we like to give them the early professional experience. So one of my subjects I teach into first year is the Foundations of Language and Literacy subject. So smack bang in the middle of that 12 weeks, they go out into schools and they do observation of teachers, and with a focus on literacy and that, and teaching of English, and if they're primary, of reading, etc., etc. And it's always so lovely because, I think they come back and they go, this really is for me. Like, we've had a chance to get in there and see what it's like, yeah, and have a bit of a play in that space. So they're often really enthusiastic after that first 5 days. So that's our rationale for getting them in there early, because it might also be that, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So, and give them
yeah. So they do learn, depending on their program, a range of school settings for primary and secondary, and also those early learning centres for birth to year 3 for ECs.
Yeah.
Yep. So in terms of entry requirements, if your son or daughter is thinking about planning at this stage, there are, I guess, 2 broad categories of requirements. So the academic and non-academic requirements. So you can see those there. Early childhood and primary common requirements in terms of prerequisite subjects. The ATAR you can see there. But it's really important if they're into the EC or primary that they do English, maths methods, specialist maths, plus a general science. Okay. You going to say something?
I was just going to say,
you're right.
so the thing with the science and maths requirements in particular, if it's the case that they find themselves not achieving that particular prerequisite, at the end of year 12, we do have a pathways program here at JCU. So, say they just missed out on the science prereq, they can come and do a pathways science subject that's designed to be equivalent. So there's still that backup plan, if they've just missed out the first time. So it's not no, you're not excluded. Not all lost, yeah.
Yeah, and they can do those little intensives, just prior to study period 1 starting.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the year as well.
So I think that's an important message for, for your children, because if, it's not all about the pressure point that, there's no pathway through.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'll make a note there about direct entry options. So new direct entry options we've made if your child is doing a vet certificate, particularly a Cert 3 in early childhood education and care. They can get in by direct entry into the BA and ECE. So that just means they don't need an ATAR. So still need to meet the other entry requirements, but no ATAR needed. Or if they're doing a Cert 3 in education support, so doing that kind of getting a feel for what it's like to be a teacher aide, they can get into any of the bachelor programs by direct entry. Okay, so again, no ATAR, but they just meet the other requirements. So that's another pathway too.
Yep, and obviously we'd expect the secondary areas to be those that they plan to teach in.
Yeah, so English, maths for everybody. They don't need a science unless they're going to specialise in physics or chemistry. Okay? Yep.
Okay.
Do you want to talk to this one?
So I guess we've got the academic component for entry that Louise has just talked about, and the prerequisites, etc. And there's another component, and I'm assuming that if your students have been talking, your children have been talking, your young adults have been talking to their career counsellors at this stage, and they're very set on teacher education in particular, then I'm hoping they would have had the conversation about the NART, so the non-academic requirement for teacher education. Okay, and that's...
We'll run a little quiz after our session.
Yeah, so that's administered through QTAC, and what they're required to do now, and it's I think it came in about, 3 years ago perhaps, as an additional...
It's common to all programs, so it's not just a JC Europe.
Yeah, it's Queensland-wide now. So in order to, I guess in medicine they might do an interview. They might have to submit a statement and then they'll be interviewed. For our potential pre-service teachers, we get them to, through QTAC, submit 2 pieces of text, so 2 written statements. They're not onerous, 500 words each, and there's the 2 categories. So what we've got is on the QTAC website, they actually give some tips around writing each of those. So what kinds of things could you use as evidence to, demonstrate your motivation and your suitability, and how do you demonstrate your personal and leadership qualities? So, as they go through senior secondary school, they'd be thinking about what kinds of extracurricular things do they do, what kind of service do they do. They've got a job that they could speak to about, captain of a team, all of those kinds of things that they could demonstrate those qualities. They're actually personal attributes rather than academic attributes. The data shows that most students who go through the QTAC NART process are successful statewide. So it's, I only looked at that data a couple of months ago. So,
and students find it valuable.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't think they should be too anxious about it, but if they haven't started thinking about what they might do and respond to that, book in with your career counsellor, and say, hey, let's start practicing. English teacher might be able to help as well. There'll be someone in the school, and if not,
I'm sure part of the set planning process, if they've said education, which we want to.
Yeah, but there is a lot more detail on the QTAC website if you jump on there as well. It is really quite explicit. Oh, that's what you have your favourite last slide. What about poster boys?
I guess what we can say is certainly education is an exciting, rewarding profession. Our graduates are in high demand, and we're not just saying that because we need to. They actually are. They are snavelled, and a lot of our 4th years at the moment have got jobs before they've even graduated. They're 6 months in finishing and they've got jobs. So certainly very rewarding, and we certainly hope to welcome your children here, your young adults, to education at JCU.
And certainly, just by way of recently submitting a report to the QCT, which is the Queensland College of Teachers, who register teachers to start teaching. Our employment is well above national average, so we are batting very well in the take-up of our graduate students, graduate pre-service teachers. So that's really lovely. Yeah.
Yep. Any questions? And then we're going to get off the stage and someone else can talk.
Yeah.